Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Rogue Trader with me, Bring It On. Let's land on Dargonus. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand aside. I need to crowd around. Governor Driveson will take care of everything. This is ridiculous. Such a thing happening right in the Rogue Trader's palace. You're confronted by the sight of dead bodies at the entrance to the palace. The corpses have been hauled into a pile. Some are dressed in the uniforms of palace wardens, while others are arrayed in the clothing typical of the Dargonus nobility. Upon seeing you, the young enforcer stands at attention and swallows noisily. His voice trembles as he says, "Your lordship, we are honored by your presence." Examine the assailants. The bodies of the assailants are studded with many augmetics, but upon closer inspection, realize that they are not merely implants. Their construction makes it clear that the deceased were not humans, but in fact rare high-functioning servitors. Abelard frowns. As far as I know, House Gaprak has received such servitors from the Crimson Priesthood as gifts in the past, although this is my first time seeing one myself. Point at the dead bodies. What is this mess? You see, your lordship, those people wanted to attack. The warden clears his throat. Second Lieutenant of the Palace Guard Elam Veit, reporting. Shortly before you arrived, we averted an assassination attempt on the Rogue Trader. The palace soldiers detected intruders and engaged them in combat. Where is the Court Chancellor, Clementia Versarion? I think she's with the rest of House Versarion. Detained in the throne room, that is. Governor Drivesome has gathered all of Dargonus' nobility there to pronounce a guilty verdict against House Versarion. Well, that answers this question. Why is the governor not here to greet the Rogue Trader? I do not know, your lordship. Perhaps he is... Guard throws a fearful gaze at Abelard. You can probably find him in the throne room, where the governor intends to put House Versarion on trial. I must take my leave. Interesting. The bodies bear multiple wounds. It is evident that they died recently. There's a crumpled up letter in the inside pocket of an assailant's blood-soaked jacket. Alright, we got a bloodstained letter. The letter is soaked with blood. Only a portion of the text is readable through the crimson blotches. Needful and discreet. I guess careful and discreet? Keep away from the lords and ladies. You must look like a noble to the servants and wardens. Do not engage in conversation with anyone. Your task is to avoid exposing yourself ahead of time and let the Versarians get away while the wardens are busy guarding the Rogue Trader.
Is there money to be made?
Well, I suspect nothing new is going to be found around here, so let's head inside.
Let us not dawdle.
You know what, let's take a look just in case. It crossed my mind that we might find, I don't know, a mysterious stranger standing around somewhere.
Always keep your eye on the price. I always keep my options open. I always have a backup plan.
I still can't believe we've been saved. In the Dark City, I often prayed to the Exalted One, and now I'm going to need a lot of thrones to hold up my end of the bargain. But I have no regrets.
Salvation is the consequence of his immeasurable mercy to those faithful to his cause, not the fruit of any bargain. The Emperor does not strike deals.
Yeah, of course he doesn't. Let me through. I have an appointment with Chancellor Clementia Versarion. My apologies, my lord. You cannot go any further. Governor Drivestem's orders. A lot of powdered wigs. This is ridiculous. I shall complain. Move over. Let his lordship the rogue trader through. I humbly beg your pardon, your lordship. Your lordship, please, this way. Your lordship, 'tis an honor. Governor Urban Drivestem seems to materialize out of thin air. So suddenly does he emerge from the crowd. I regret that such unfortunate circumstances have occasioned the rogue trader's visit to the capital. Clementia tries to take a step toward you, but the warden nearby stops her. Her face is veiled with fear and wariness. Your lordship, you are here. Please, you must hear us out. The rogue trader is undoubtedly here to listen to the testimony of each and every one of us, and to punish the traitors. The governor's words, directed at Clementia, are harsh. They're echoed by the scornful sneers and whispers of the assembled nobles. We have known each other for many decades now. We have had our fair share of disagreements, but... do you really think my flesh and blood would trample upon the very definition of honor and loyalty? Abelard's voice is quivering with rage. The governor sweeps his gaze over Abelard, then replies, a faint shadow of a doubt in his voice. We have evidence implicating them, Abelard. I'm sure that his lordship will arrive at a fair ruling. What are the charges against House Versarion? Disruption of logistical lines, bribery of Adeptus Administratum officials, document forgery, and organization of heretical insurrections. On top of the evidently devastating economic impact this has had on your protectorate, these criminals have impeded the delivery of the imperial tithe, which in turn has drawn the Administratum's attention. An esteemed member of the Adeptus Arbites is expected to arrive on Dargonus shortly, and before they do, we are obligated to identify and punish those responsible. Clementia, I wish to hear your account. Your lordship, House Versarion denies all charges laid against it. Clementia glances at the governor with defiance. These last few months have indeed been trying for Dargonus, but we have done our best to remedy the situation. My family's every effort was focused on stabilizing the capital's logistics and economy, so much so that we failed to notice the web of intrigue unfolding behind our backs. What happened on Dargonus in my absence? When we caught wind of the rumors of your disappearance, we patiently awaited news of your return, but then Dargonus was struck by a series of terrible events. The first was the sabotage of logistics that hampered shipments. Then mass unrest spread across the entire planet, and the minor noble houses began squabbling among themselves, trying to pin the blame on their rivals. We took great pains to calm them down, and managed to quash the revolt, though not without some outside help, unfortunately. These events have also been overshadowed by the... I'm ashamed to even say it aloud in front of you, your lordship. The rumor circulating among the higher houses. The governor stammers, and takes a deep breath. Some are calling for Theodore's true heir to be installed as head of your house, Conrad Voigtveer. Not all of your subjects have forgotten his past efforts for the benefit of the Trade Protectorate. Drivestem stops talking, watching you with a tense expression. When the investigation was launched, the evidence led us to the Versarians. Why are there dead bodies at the entrance to my palace? Your lordship, I humbly beg your pardon. Drivestem bows once again, trying to placate you. You see, right before your arrival, the palace guard discovered a plot to assassinate you. Fortunately, the malefactors were disposed of before they could cause you any harm. Drivestem, you aren't accusing one of Dargonus' leading noble houses of treason without airtight evidence, are you? Of course I have evidence, your lordship. The investigation has established that members of the Versarian family, which is responsible for both Dargonus' fleet and its logistics, use their contacts and influence to forge a host of documents in order to undermine the planet's supply routes and economy, thus fomenting unrest among the inhabitants. Allow me to introduce my son, Cornelius. The governor points to the lanky young man standing beside him. He bows curtly, but avoids meeting your eye. Cornelius holds a prestigious position at the Administratum Palace, and it is thanks to him that we managed to identify and trace the entire chain of forged documents. The investigation led us to the perpetrators, who admitted to acting on the orders of members of House Versarian. It was they who were intent on spreading the idea of restoring the title of Rogue Trader to the true heir. I remind you that House Versarian has hardly covered itself in glory in the past. It allowed Xenos to attack the planet. Governor Drivestem throws a quick, arrogant glance at a red-faced Clementia. Look closer at the governor's son. Noticing the close attention of the rogue trader, the young man averts his gaze. Speak to the heads of the houses present. Do you support the governor's accusations? The aristocrats in attendance exchange glances, the noble lords averting their gazes and the noble ladies hiding behind the fans. No one is willing to be the first to answer. Over his many years of service, Governor Drivestem earned Theodore's trust, and he holds his high office for a reason. Sarabak's tone is stern and imperious. On behalf of House Sarabak, I support his accusations. My apologies, your lordship, but I wish to speak too. Regina looks into your eyes with a tender half-smile, then turns her gaze on her husband. Of course, I agree with my husband. Governor Drivestem would not press the charges against anyone who were not absolutely certain of the authenticity of the evidence he had unearthed. I think anyone here would agree that anyone who ever doubts the authority of the true rogue trader should be prosecuted. I am sure, your lordship, that you will eradicate the scourge of heresy from your domain. Regina bows to you deferentially while maintaining eye contact with you. Your lordship, Governor Drivestem has always faithfully served the rogue traders of House Von Valancius and concerned himself with the future of your trade dynasty. And so, House Capric thinks his charges against House Versarian to be sound. Dogmatics hide Toriana's emotion, but her voice sounds slightly timorous. I humbly ask you to allow me to speak in defense of my family's honor. The evidence provided by the governor is utterly false. I cannot refute it, but I can say with confidence that no one from my family has ever tried to forge documents in the Adeptus Administratum, let alone undermine the economy of your capital. Sabotaging logistics, riots, conspiracy. The case appears to be flimsy. I wish to learn more before I make my final decision. As you wish, your lordship. The governor inclines his head in a stiff bow. Speak to me when you're ready to announce your verdict. Thank you for your willingness to help, Lord Captain. I'm certain that all the charges are false, and I'd be grateful for your help in exposing them as such. I think you should speak to everyone present, the noble lords and ladies. So I'm suspecting that the Versarians are actually guilty.
Rise to the top, or get left in the dust.
Only to subvert expectations. Alright, let's start with the Gaprax. The lords and ladies, sumptuously dressed in the colors of House Gaprek, are standing in a half circle around Toriana and her son Vicent. The bodies and faces of almost every member of this dynasty are covered in large, ornate augmetics. Toriana Gaprek curtsies to you. Her mechanical voice sounds distant and indifferent. Greetings, your lordship. May the Omnissiah grant you understanding. With a click, her visor ocular swivel to the seneschal. Abelard. It must be difficult for you to be here under these circumstances, with your house standing accused of such a grave crime. My family, Lady Toriana, is yet to be found guilty of anything. That verdict is for the rogue trader to reach. Do you think the accusations against the Versarian family are true? I will not take such a responsibility upon myself and rule on their guilt, your lordship. I do think Governor Drivesom's accusations are worthy of consideration, however. In your opinion, which nobles might have a reason to be party to such a conspiracy? She thinks for several moments before replying. Pardon my bluntness, your lordship, but I will answer truthfully. It could be anyone. Greed, fear, and ideals can drive even the most loyal subjects to do the unthinkable. I've examined the bodies of the assailants that were killed today. All of them were high-functioning servitors. Such servitors are only employed by families close to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Isn't that so? It is impossible to read Toriana's emotions in her heavily augmented face, but her sudden turn toward her family betrays her confusion and surprise. Perplexed whispers bounce from one family member to another. Impossible. We came here by ourselves, without any servitors. We know nothing about it. Your lordship, thank you for informing us of this. You are absolutely right. My house has indeed been endowed with high-functioning servitors, a blessing for those who revere the Omnissiah. But today, none of our house members were accompanied by them. I found this note on the bodies of one of the attackers. What are your thoughts on it? Toriana's mechanical fingers grip the paper. Officially, high-functioning servitors are employed by my house, and my house alone. If such units were to attack the rogue trader, suspicion would instantly fall upon the Gapreks. I assume that this is what the Versarians intended to happen, but they did not expect that the servitors would have this letter on them. Vicent, I wish to speak to you. I'm ready to serve your lordship. How may I help you? What do you make of the charges against the Versarian family? Could they truly be guilty? I do not think I can doubt the validity of the accusations, but... Vicent's voice trails off. He seems to retreat into himself for a moment. Before continuing, he takes a deep breath. I am also not sure that House Versarian had a reason to betray you, your lordship. I do not know of any instance where their loyalty to you and the Emperor was anything less than unwavering. I know you care for a starship Versarian. Are you prepared to watch her die? Vicent's dogmatic screeches slightly. The young man scrutinizes his mother and other family members for a few moments. There is something you ought to know, your lordship. Today, I noticed one of my family members to be in an odd, uncharacteristic mood. Halen Gaprek is my paternal second cousin once removed. May the Emperor save his soul. Usually reserved and self-possessed, today he was frantic and anxious, fidgeting with a small piece of paper and seemingly looking for someone to no avail. When I last saw him, he was headed to the entrance hall, where the altars are. Perhaps you should talk to him. That will do. Vicent inclines his head in a respectful bow. I shall take my leave. And the Sourabacks. Before bowing, Sourback scrutinizes you with a bitter, judgmental look. Your lordship. Hetka, got the consonants mixed up. Looking like a younger copy of his father, stands at a slight distance close to his mother. An expensive yet understated dress serves to highlight the dazzling beauty of Macarius' wife, Regina Sourback. Your lordship, I'm delighted that you have chosen to grace us with your attention. Regina drops into a curtsy while looking intently into your eyes. Kiss Regina's hand. I am honored, Lady Sourback. Noticing your gesture, Regina readily extends her delicate hand, her nails long and manicured. Why, how kind of you to say, your lordship. Burning eyes fixed on you, Sarback straightens and leans forward, trying to partially occupy the space between you and his wife. Set against the doom and gloom of current events and your husband's dour family, you look especially dazzling today, Regina. A flirtatious spark flares in the beautiful lady's eyes. Really, your lordship. I'm glad to hear this from the rogue trader, especially today. Macarius almost barks, each word striking like a hammer strikes metal. Regina, step away from his lordship. Regina's high voice almost breaks into a shriek. She interrupts her husband, retorting defiantly and disobediently. Oh, throne preserve you, Macarius. Stop being so jealous and making a scene over nothing. Just because a crude blockhead like you lacks the refinement and courtesy of Donald von Valancius. Regina's voice drops to a whisper, so that only you can hear her. His bile poisons the air around him wherever he goes. Once he gets something into his head, he hurries off to remove the heads of others just to prove that he was in the right. Do you really believe the Versarians are guilty? Certainly, Sarback replies without hesitation. Governor Drivestone possesses proof of their guilt, and they have no means by which to refute it. Even if I were to entertain the idea that the Versarians are being framed, how much longer would their house have lasted anyway, if it is so ill-prepared for treachery? He addresses Abelard with a slight mocking tone. My advice to House Versarian would be not to appeal to the rogue trader for help, but instead to simply stop, accept their fate, and not make matters worse for themselves. I cannot remember Donald von Valancius seeking your advice on what House Versarian should do in this situation. Pay attention, Macarius. Focus on the rogue trader's questions. Who apart from the Versarians could have a motive to conspire against me? House Drivestem, wishing to expand their clout. House Caprak, who lost their influence after the Kiava Gamma incident. Sarabak looks back at his family, then turns to you again. House Sarabak, whose patriarch is too direct in his communication with the rogue trader. Anyone could have a reason to conspire against you, and equally, they could have none. It is not a question of motive, but of loyalty. Each of your subjects has sworn an oath of loyalty to you, so whose sincerity do you doubt? The assailants sent to the palace were rare, high-functioning servitors. Do you think the Gaprax could be behind the attack? Sarabak looks away briefly, replies to you with a curt laugh. I've always thought Toriana too weak to participate in such risky ventures, but it seems I was wrong about her. Leave. I'm going to say goodbye.
Is there money to be made?
We're loyal servants of our rogue trader, the true heir of Theodore von Valancius. Governor Drivestone is surrounded by his retinue, who are all dressed in expensive gowns and finery. The matching color scheme of their outfits and the striking physical resemblance among them suggest that they all come from one family. Your Lordship, thank you for giving this case your undivided attention. The governor bows, and the rest hasten to follow suit. I wish to hear your reasoning again. What makes you think the Versarians are behind the plot against me? As soon as the logistical and economic problems gave rise to the initial rumors, we tried to find the person responsible for spreading the calls for Voidfear's return. The investigation showed that some of the documents inside the Adeptus Administratum were forgeries. We can thank my son Cornelius for such astute observations. Your Lordship, a slender young man bows to you awkwardly, and nervously licks his dry lips. I assure you that my humble person is undeserving of your attention. Cornelius holds a prestigious position at the Administratum Palace, and it was he who discovered the errors leading to the disrupted logistics. It is also thanks to him that we found the perpetrators of the forgeries, who admitted to acting on the orders of House Versarian. What do you make of this letter? I found it on one of the assailants. Governor Drivestone peers closely at the blood-stained paper. The looks like another piece of evidence incriminating House Versarion. Perhaps they truly did intend to kill you, or at least cause a stir to help them escape custody during the confusion that followed. All of the assailants were high-functioning servitors. Such servitors are only employed by families close to the Adeptus Mechanicus. High-functioning servitors. Bravstem ponders this, rubbing his chin with his thumb. Such servitors are indeed rare, and the Gaprax do have them in their service. But this could have been done intentionally with an eye to confusing you. Anyone with the desire and sufficient funds can hire them. Tell me more about your son, Drivestem. Thank you for your interest, your lordship, but I am not worthy of it. The governor's son bows and stands still as he nervously stares down at the floor. Son, show due respect. Forgive him, your lordship. This is the first time he has had the honor of attracting the attention of the rogue trader. Heinrich narrows his eyes and, glancing at you, shakes his head. Tell me more about your job, Cornelius. What do you do? I manage the documents and records related to the economy of Dargonus. You probably know how scrupulous the workers of the Adeptus Administratum are. I'm afraid that a more detailed explanation of my duties would mirror the administrative processes of the Administratum. Too long and overly detailed. Cornelius tries to look you in the eye, but it is clearly hard for him to do. How did you manage to find the forged documents in the bureaucratic hell that is the Administratum? When compiling reports on last cycle supply chain, I noticed inaccuracies and discrepancies in the figures. With the help of the other clerks, I managed to find several other documents. Cornelius stammers and swallows noisily. Comprehensive data analysis has shown that the discrepancies were caused by intentional tampering with the data, thus leading to some logistical problems that were practically unsolvable. The father and I have managed to single out the Administratum clerks responsible for tampering with the data. Following a heated interrogation, they confessed that they were following the orders of someone from House Versarion. Everything was supposed to look as though they were the ones suffering losses from the logistical and economic problems. But does House Versarion have access to the Adeptus Administratum? There is no conceivable way they could do all of this in a place where they do not hold any power. Before replying, the governor's son nervously adjusts his expensive frock coat. I think the right amount of money can open any door. Cornelius, what is the true reason for your nervousness? The young man's pupils suddenly dilate. He stands at attention and replies to you in one breath. This is the first time I've spoken face to face with the rogue trader. I'm afraid of saying something wrong or forgetting something important. The governor closely watches his son. His tone changes, now sounding strict and curt. Do you wish to tell the Lord Captain anything else? So I like option 2, because Heinrichs even gave us a clue that he doesn't think Cornelius is being honest. Alright, we'll go with coercion. I'll place your hand on your weapon. You're speaking to a rogue trader, and my patience is running out. You see the flash of terror in Cornelius's eyes as he stares at your hand on your weapon. He speaks quietly and confusedly, without raising his head. Forgive me, your lordship. I can't do it anymore. This lie has gone too far, and I can no longer control it. The truth is that all of the logistical problems are caused by a single error in the numbers. My mistake. What? Urban looks genuinely shocked and enraged. When I discovered my mistake, it was almost impossible to restore the supply lines. Then I was approached by someone who said they were a friend. They did not give me their name, and I never saw their face. They promised to fix the problem. All I had to do was pretend that the Versarians were responsible for the mistake. And as for the rest of the evidence, they promised to arrange it all, and Cornelius is suffocating with fear, unable to speak. Urban curls his hands into fists, the knuckles turning white. What have you done? How could you? Your lordship. He suddenly turns to you, as if trying to shield his son. This is my fault. I trusted my son, and have failed you in doing so. I beg you, have mercy. Abelard shakes his head. You called my family's honor into question, Urband. Nevertheless, I harbor no desire to kick a man when he is down. Lord Captain, the confession you have obtained means that House Versarion can now be cleared of all charges. But we still do not know who is behind the forgeries, the riots, the plot, and the assassination attempt. Someone is committing their foul deeds and sowing chaos right under your subjects' noses. To leave that stone unturned would be dangerous. But what is this friend that approached you, Cornelius? How did the two of you communicate? By letter. I received a letter out of the blue one day. It was unsigned, but the person writing already knew about my erroneous calculations. They offered to help me cover up my misdeed, and in return, I would name the Versarians as the ones who had sabotaged the supply lines. All I had to do was gather together some documents and reports that were listed in one of the letters. That, and keep my mouth shut. How strict do I want to be? I probably don't want to kill my governor's son in front of him. Because that could give rise to dissent later down the line. So let's go with option 1. Urban, your son has found the courage to admit his mistake. I will try and find some compassion for him in my heart. Thank you, your lordship. The governor bows low and gives his son a look full of bitterness and frustration. As for your position, I think you'll be reassigned to a role requiring less responsibility. I shall return to you later. We still have more people to talk to.
I always keep my options open.
All the questions have not yet been answered. As you draw closer, the wardens step aside, bowing respectfully, allowing you to approach the Versarion family. Clementia, tired and slightly disheveled, is the first to bow her head to you in deference. Several men and women behind her follow suit. Your lordship, the woman stammers as if lost for words. Accept my most humble apologies for failing to greet you properly, and my thanks for agreeing to speak to me before making your final decision. The charges brought by the governor are severe, but I can only assure you of this, and swear on my own honor. We are not guilty of the crimes that House Versarion is being accused of. Clementia. A hint of sorrow creeps into Abelard's voice, belying his stern facade. You're acting head of this family. You're supposed to take care of each and every family member. And now you're being accused of treason and collusion against the rogue traitor, and the entire family is facing death. How could you let this happen? I mean, we know she's not, but we'll explore the stuff anyway. Are you truly guilty? Be honest. I will not tolerate lies. Clementia, you know that a member of your family is guilty of the crimes you're being accused of. Abelard, it is your family too, you know. The woman's words burn with defiance. My apologies. I shall not lose my composure. No member of House Versarion is involved in a conspiracy against his lordship. Honor and loyalty are not something we take lightly, and we know whom we serve. The governor claims you forged documents in the Administratum. The fleet is the primary remit of House Versarion. It is our responsibility. Logistics and supply routes are another area of our responsibility. We have no direct influence on the inner workings of the Adeptus Administratum. The first large-scale deliveries were cancelled after quantities of food were miscalculated by clerks in the Administratum. Then we were faced with incorrect weather data and a meager fuel budget. It was clear that the cause of all these problems was the calculations performed in the Administratum, in one way or another. but no matter how many times we asked, we could not ever obtain any clarification on the matter. I found this letter on one of the bodies of the heretics who planned the attack. What can you tell me about it? While Clementia reads the letter, Versarians behind her read it over her shoulder. Your lordship, let us be frank. It would be foolish of me to try and orchestrate something like this, knowing how many wardens are patrolling your palace. I would not have let myself or anyone in my family get involved in such a scheme. The attackers were high-functioning servitors, ones that look closer to ordinary humans. Do you know anything about them? Servitors? Is that so? Clementia crosses her arms and furrows her brow, deep in thought. I've encountered servitors that were indistinguishable from normal augmented humans, but only once. They were accompanying several members of House Gaprak. If you're not guilty, who is? Who stands to gain from framing you? Anyone, really. Clementia replies with a bitter laugh. The other houses consider us unworthy of our position, and many would jump at the chance to get rid of us and gain control over what was once our domain. The planet's fleet and logistics, at the very least. Lady Theodora chose to grant noble status to House Versarion, but the other houses, which have served in the Expanse for millennia, did not welcome the decision. It has led to some difficulties. I want to find out what is going on here, and who the real mastermind behind all this is. Where should I start? I'm afraid I cannot be of much help. Talk to the representatives of the other houses, of other houses. Eavesdrop on their retinue, and perhaps you will hear something unusual. I must take my leave.
Always keep your eye on the prize.
Whew, a lot of reading. There's someone out here we're supposed to talk to. This guy. A finely dressed man of middle years is kneeling in front of the altar, his palms folded in prayer close to his face. The implant-free parts of his skin are a sickly blue color. The nobleman does not react to your presence. He does not lift his head. He does not blink. He does not even breathe. Only when you draw closer do you realize that he is dead. Abelard looks at the man, his eyes grim. The colors of House Gaprak. I do not believe he decided to take his own life in such an extravagant way. As far as I know, there's a warden post here, but I do not see any wardens. The seneschal looks around. There was no one to ask about what happened here, with whom this man spoke before he died. I'd like to ask Urban where the palace guard suddenly disappeared to. Onyx leans toward the dead man. A familiar sight. There are poisons that rapidly damage the nervous system, causing paralytic spasms throughout the body once injected. The victims usually suffocate slowly and painfully, unable to call for help. What a surprise! You're versed in the art of underhanded murder. Have you often resorted to the coward's weapon in your life, rather than fighting fair? I have. All of my victims are enemies of the Imperium, who could not have been reached by any other means. Would you prefer they still be alive, my Lord Ulfar? Heinrich meets the wolf's menacing gaze with dignity, ignoring the almost palpable wave of threat emanating from the angel of the Emperor. Examine the body. There are no visible wounds on the body, but near the edge of the gold-trimmed collar, you notice a tiny puncture in his blue skin, likely a wound caused by a thin needle. Search the pockets. You discover a secret pocket in the lining of the dead man's luxurious jacket. You find a folded piece of paper inside, hiding behind a handkerchief embroidered with the initials HG, and a short note. Make sure that the rogue trader is attacked by someone loyal. It should appear as if it was all staged to let the Versarion family escape. This is the last assignment. Soon your debt will be paid off in full. Look around. You're almost certain that wardens are usually stationed nearby, but their post is empty. Where have they gone? This would be an excellent question to put to Governor Drivestem. Step away from the corpse. Also appreciate the animosity between Ulfar and Heinrichs. Because I mentioned it before, but the Inquisition and Space Wolves do not get along. Here we go. I discovered a dead body, a member of your house, right here in my palace. He died kneeling in prayer. Brianna covers her open mouth with her hand in surprise, and turning to her family, looks for someone among them. Halen. It can't be. Halen, was it? Tell me about him, Toriana. Halen is one of the lower-ranking members of House Gaprak. Despite his advanced age, he never held high office, but he was forever striving to better his position, even beyond his abilities. Many members of my house struggled to cope with the misfortune that befell Kiava Gamma and our family. Some members could not reconcile themselves to our new position. Halen was one of them. What could have happened to him? Brianna's visor oculars are fixed on the floor, her fingers restlessly clenching in the fabric of her dress. Toriana, the time to keep silent is long gone. The future of the Von Valancius trade dynasty and your house are both at stake now. We lost Kiava Gamma, a truly devastating blow to every member of House Gaprak. I lost all hope for the future. My kin lost their sense of purpose. We needed time to recover and chart a new course for ourselves. We were, and still are more than capable of doing that. But I will not deny it. The other houses have offered us their assistance, for their own self-serving ends. Perhaps Halen decided to take them up on one of their offers behind my back. The Seneschal bows ever so slightly, and speaks quietly so that only you can hear him. Lord Captain, the Gapraks, all, or perhaps only some of them, are definitely involved. But I suspect that they were not behind the plot against you. Halen Gaprak could be nothing more than a puppet in the hands of a deaf puppet master. We must expose whoever that is if we are to prevent the pestilence of heresy from spreading any further. What do you suggest we do? Interrogate the heads of the Drivestem and Sourback houses. One of them has been pulling the strings here. Once we uncover new evidence, announce that the guilty party will be publicly executed. Before you pronounce the verdict, I suggest focusing on each house in your indictment speech. I shall observe them. I've known those people far longer than you have. I know all their gestures, habits, and behavioral quirks. I'm sure that I'll be able to determine which of them was responsible for the riots based on their behavior.
Keep your wits about you.
The members of House Sourback, led by Macarius, all bear a striking resemblance to one another, with their slender builds and stern looks. They bow to you almost in unison. I discovered a dead body in my palace. A man of House Gaprak was killed while praying to the Emperor. He had this note on him. Do you know anything about it? Macarius looks at the note without taking it from your hands, and replies without hesitation. No, I know nothing about this note.
Rise to the top or get left in the dust.
The Versarian family greets you in subdued voices. I discovered the body of Halen Gaprak here, in this palace. He had this note on him. Do you know anything about it? The younger members of the Versarian family crowd around to examine the note in Clementia's hands. All present are beset with worry and bewilderment. I'm not sure if it is relevant, but perhaps you should know. Since the fall of Kiava Gamma, House Gaprak has been faring poorly, to say the least. They've been looking for ways to enhance their influence and to improve their lot, including asking for help from the other noble houses. They've not approached us, of course. It is shameful to seek help from those you consider your inferiors, you understand. But perhaps the Drivestems or the Sourabacks can tell you more about this matter. When you approach them, conversations die down. The governor bows his head in deference. How may I serve you, your lordship? Are you ready to pronounce your verdict yet? I found a dead body in my palace. A member of House Gaprak was slain in front of an altar. Do you know anything about it? A member of House Gaprak was killed in the palace. The governor's eyes bulged in surprise. And no one noticed. But how? There are wardens posted at every altar. There was no one near the deceased. The wardens had left their post. Did you order them to do so? Emperor forbid, your lordship. Governor helplessly throws his hands up in the air, as if to signify his powerlessness. Your negligence is stunning, Urban. An assassination attempt followed by a mysterious death, and yet here you are, oblivious to everything. The rogue traitor can justly accuse you of allowing a noble to be killed in the palace, and of failing even to notice it. It may be so, but it is for the rogue traitor to accuse me of negligence, not you. The governor addresses you once more. Your lordship, accept my deepest apologies for my imprudence. Nothing matters more to me than my honor. I shall send the servants to deal with all of this immediately. Did you see Macarius Sourback today before I arrived? Macarius. I did not see him myself, but perhaps... The governor turns around and asks his family. Have any of you seen him today? The nobles talk quietly among themselves, and then a middle-aged woman with a tall, extravagant hairstyle replies to you. I think my sister and I saw him sitting on the bench some distance away from the palace's entrance. We think he was accompanied by a gentleman, but forgive us, your lordship, we could not make out his face. Lead me to that place. Of course, consider it done. I saw Lord Sourback conversing with someone here, your lordship.
Duty prevails.
Oh, that scent. Spicy, a bit tart. I'm almost sure that I've tasted a wine with this bouquet before. Mon cher, how Sourback usually serves this wine to their guests.
I always have a backup plan. Is there money to be made?
So do I walk around until I smell it on somebody else?
I always keep my options open. Always keep your eye on the prize.
Oh, we go back to the body. I bet you we smell the wine on the body. Oh, he's up again.
Rise to the top, or get left in the dust. Keep your wits about you. Let us not dawdle.
If I can't find who else had the wine,
Is
what's
there
the
money
point
to be
of
made?
an awareness check? I mean, we have Ulfar in the party.
Always keep your eye on the prize.
I guess we just announce the verdict now. I don't see... Unless it's someone outside the palace. That seems unlikely. Alright, let's announce our verdict. Summon everyone. I am ready to pronounce my verdict. Governor Drysdale tensely bows and replies without hesitation. Understood, your lordship. Allow me to prepare everything. Many faces are watching you, each and every one awaiting the rogue trader's verdict with bated breath. The charges brought by Governor Drivestem were fabricated. House Versarion had nothing to do with the orchestration of the riots or the plot targeting the rogue trader. However, the real perpetrators are here in this very room. The seneschal nods to you as if urging you to continue, then shifts his piercing gaze to the crowd before you. Alright, I know that House Sauerback offered their help to the Gaprax, and the late Halen Gaprax seemed to have accepted the offer. I suspect that you're responsible for his death as well. Sauerback furrows his brows and slightly cocks his head. He averts his gaze for the first time, as if trying to remember or make sense of something. You notice some restless movements behind him. Abelard narrows his eyes, and scrutinizes Macarius Sauerback and his retinue standing behind him. The sharp eyes light up when he catches sight of something important and hidden in the crowd. The seneschal looks at you and nods, as if to say, "The puppeteer has given himself away. Pronounce the verdict." Let's say some more stuff. Macarius Sauerback, your overt contempt toward me is reason enough to implicate you in the conspiracy. The crowd remains silent, following their tense, anxious gazes darting back and forth between you and Macarius. Sauerback's brows rise higher. You notice his jaw working nervously. Abelard narrows his eyes and scrutinizes Macarius Sauerback and his retinue standing behind him. For a second, sharp eyes seem to have caught sight of something, only to lose track of it the next moment. A disappointed sigh tells you, it could be a Sauerback, but is he really the one behind all this? Toriana Gaprak, a member of your family orchestrated an assassination attempt against me, here in my own palace. And though he has already been found dead, his act is reason enough to forever brand your house as traitors. Mocking whispers creep through the crowd. Toriana is trembling faintly. She still does not raise her head, perhaps out of fear of meeting her fate face to face. The seneschal's hard gaze softens. An elusive gesture, visible only to you, conveys the message. Toriana Gaprek is guilty only of her own poor judgment. Urban Drivestem, you've accused House Versarion of violations that were in truth the result of a grave error committed by your son. The governor closes his eyes, fear and shame getting the better of him. Some faces in the crowd look confused and surprised. We see more wearing expressions of self-satisfied contempt. Abelard looks from the governor to you, and suddenly shakes his head, as if to say, no. It is not Drivestem pulling the strings here. Urban Drivestem, you've exhibited inexcusable negligence by failing to question the possible involvement of any other family besides the Versarions. We've discovered that the attempt on my life was orchestrated by a member of House Gaprak. Same description as before. And same here. In the conspiracy against the rogue trader, I find... The air in the room is frozen, with a tense, almost electrified silence. All the nobles, some with fear and others with reverent anticipation, await your verdict. House Sauerback guilty. Seneschal, you may take it from here. Oh, why is it shaking so much? Abelard steps forward and stares intently at House Sauerback's patriarch. Macarius, I must admit I have always admired your bluntness. But just as I once had to say goodbye to a promotion because of my dislike for intrigue, you and your family might soon say goodbye to your heads. Tell me now in your blunt fashion, are you loyal to House von Valancius? Sarabak narrows his eyes, grimacing. I am loyal, Versarion. Abelard studies Sarabak, then suddenly nods. You're not lying, but someone else is. Someone who is poised to destroy both you and your family for her own gain. Macarius does not have time to respond. Regina, who is standing beside him, raises her arm as if to slap the elderly seneschal. Abelard deftly catches her wrist, stopping her hand right in front of his face. Her dainty hand is adorned with a massive augmetic ring, topped with a thin spike dripping with venom. Sarabak shifts his confused gaze from his wife to Abelard, then back again. The stiff arrogance has vanished from his posture. Regina, you. Mother. Upon realizing what has happened, Hetka recoils from his mother. Macarius, your bluntness makes you an open book. When I talked about helping the Gaprex, you had no idea what I was referring to. Your wife, on the other hand, her eyes started shifting like you would not believe. Regina Sarabak, you alone betrayed the rogue traitor, jeopardizing the prosperity of the von Valancius trade dynasty, and you alone are responsible for your unmasking. Regina, why would you do this? By the spike on her ring, Regina's words are dripping with poison and rage. Because Dargonus is serving an impostor, the true heir of the Protectorate bears a different name. When Conrad appeared on Dargonus, he paid me a visit, and opened my eyes to the truth of the situation. Theodora was killed by the one whom she had so unwarily taken under her wing. I mean, that's true, but it wasn't us. Macarius is too narrow-minded to even consider opposing the rogue traitor, even an illegitimate one. So I had to wait for the right moment, and the disappearance of the Lord Captain could not have come at a better time. It was quite simple to trigger a chain of events on Dargonus, so that the people remembered Master Voidfear's past service. It seems that many of your subjects do not actually consider you a worthy successor. Why the Versarians? Because when stripped of the Seneschal's protection, this house is the weakest one on all of Dargonus, and they are also particularly disliked by the governor's family. It would have been easy to bury the Versarians under accusations of heresy. Who aided you? There's no way you managed all this on your own. Oh, of course I didn't. I have too many helpers to list them all. But rest assured there are plenty of them, just as there are plenty of people who follow Master Voidfear. My death will not change anything. The true rogue traitor will come and take his rightful place when the time is right. Why did you kill Halen Gaprick? Halen was a good agent, but he was also a coward. He came to me just before our formidable rogue traitor arrived. He was ready to confess everything. I suggested that he plead for the Emperor's forgiveness first. And he did grant him mercy, did he not? Abelard, the sentence has yet to be carried out. Finish this. Abelard turns his gaze to you. Does the rogue traitor condemn only the rotten apple, or the entire barrel? I would not exterminate an entire noble line that is loyal to me just because of one traitor. In that case, Regina Sauerbach shall be subjected to intense interrogation, followed by execution. That is unfortunate for her because we have an interrogator of the Inquisition in our party. She is in for a very bad time. Also, that was a lot of reading. Lost track of the time. By order of the rogue traitor, Regina Sauerbach is sentenced to death for heresy and crimes against the von Valancius trade dynasty. Alright, who are those two other people? She was tortured in front of everybody and then executed. It's like the ending of Braveheart. When the nobles disperse, sated by the bloody performance, Abelard approaches you, his steps firm. Lord Captain, you have my thanks. A rogue trader should not waste time on the matters that his servants and trustees can resolve. But in this case, your intervention was necessary. Not just for the sake of my family, but for your trade dynasty as well. Regina Sauerback, evidently, Conrad's accomplices continue to plot against your protectorate. I fear we've not heard the last of such scoundrels. Thanks to you, Lord Captain, House Versarion is saved, although it came close to being wiped out as a result of scheming without and imprudence within. Abelard pauses for a moment, staring off into the distance. Sometimes I think about how much I could teach them. I could ensure that they survive in the future without me. What are you going to do now? I need time to reflect upon what happened and the role I played in it. I think I'll be ready to resume this conversation later, when we're back on board the ship. Abelard bows to you deferentially and turns away, lost in thought. I suppose he is never home, so it'd be hard for him to teach his family much of anything. Oh yeah, Achilles. He is gone now. But I'm not sure if he's supposed to be dead or not. And we also got Trader's Ring. A ring weapon that fires a single liquefier shot. Can only be used once per combat. Contaminates a 3-cell radius area, which inflicts 10 toxic damage and applies melting every turn. And I did a lot of stumbling when reading this time around, but after so many words, things start to fuse together. Oh yeah, let's see what Ulfar says here. A good void drekker and a respectful crew. You cannot compare it to a wolf ship. Alright, I'm gonna call it here. Next time we'll return to the ship, speak to Abelard, and I guess start heading towards Footfall for Jai's quest. But for now, thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.